You must have fun. Life is so
No,
short,
I
and
do.
we need to have more fun. I'm going to get my share,
Oh, yeah.
and I know you're going to get your share of it.
Well, challenging goals, you know, when I went through my worst financial times, you know, several years ago, and my partner had announced bankruptcy on national television, so the creditors all came to me, you know.
Okay.
They were kind of tough times. They were really tough times. In that period of time, I became a helicopter pilot. I wrote a book. I ran New York Marathon. There are several things that I did, and there's more too, but those are kind of biggies. I did those all in times to keep the stress away, so that I could be successful. I wasn't a loser, you know, in my own mind. And because I could have just went out and got drunk and, you know, came out of it in 5 years, you know. I didn't give up, and I didn't go bankrupt, by the way. I didn't go bankrupt. I could have, but I didn't go bankrupt. Negotiated with all the banks, and didn't pay them back everything I owed them, but I negotiated my way out, you know, and bought my freedom. It took me 5 years to do it. But probably the biggest growth 5 years of my life, because of all the other things that I did during that time, you know, and it was an amazing learning curve for me. So when people look back at the times, my toughest times are probably my best times of growth. It was an opportunity to grow. When one door opens, or one door closes, another door opens.
Peter Thomas is the founder of Century 21 Canada. And about how many people were under you?
There are more than 9,000.
More than 9,000. In dealing with 9,000 people, could that cause just a little bit of stress?
It could.
Imagine stress in the workplace. How do you deal with stress?
I'm a giver, not a taker. Gosh, there was a story I heard years ago, which was I always never forget. It was the monkeys. And
okay.
Did you ever hear this one about the monkeys?
Yes.
This fellow said that the employee would come to work in the morning. The boss sits here, and the employee comes in. He's got all these monkeys, 3 monkeys on this shoulder, 3 on this shoulder. You know, sales are down, business is bad, my wife is leaving me, and it goes on and on and on. And so they say that monkeys, for some reason, can't jump past 3 feet. So when somebody comes to me with that look on their face and the monkeys on their shoulder, instead of me going like this and they come like this, I go like this. I say, "No, stay back there." You know, stay. Now, what's the problem, Kirby? Well, you know, I can't get sales. Well, that's very interesting, Kirby. Why can't you get sales? You know, I always make sure that the problem goes to the right person.
Sure.
You know, that it stays on the shoulders of the person who should be having it. I should help you solve your problem.
It's just a problem.
But it's yours.
It's mine.
It's not mine.
Yeah.
And so how not to get stressed in the workplace is ensure that you surround yourself with people who are problem solvers.
There it is. Exactly. Because people take problems and they just blow it up.
Right.
They
Right.
make it huge.
Right.
Instead of just solving the problem, taking all those
Right.
energies and focusing on solving the problem.
Yeah. And I'm not belittling problems. They're very real.
Yes, they are.
They're very real. But usually there's a reason. You know, there's a reason for anything to happen. And so it's up to a leader will truly find the reason, and the person will grow from the experience.
Right.
But if you take that problem away from them and solve it for them, then they're not going to grow from that.
Sure. How do you define wellness?
Well, spirit, mind, and body, you know, wellness is everything. You know, that's why I kind of like work out every day.
Yes.
I try and monitor my food intake. Don't drink too much wine. I love good red wine. Don't take too much. You know, moderation. Dip into the fountain of life and just bury yourself in it, but in moderation.
Absolutely. Your wife causes you to eat right. There's many reasons for that. And
Yeah.
Can we discuss that a little bit about
Sure.
eating right?
Sure we can.
Talk a little bit about your wife, Rita.
Well, my sweetheart, she, well, Rita is on a health journey herself,
Sure.
you know, and she's written a book about health, about the right foods you should eat and the right products you should use. She's very much, you know, against all of the toxicity in the air and all this kind of stuff. So I'm her guinea pig.
Okay.
And so I support her totally, you know, in her quest. But many times I have to eat some of that, drink wheatgrass and eat that crazy food, you know. But I get the odd steak in there too, though.
Okay, yeah.
I do. Well, I believe everything in moderation. Everything. You know, you don't have. I mean, life is again. It's to enjoy. It's a thing to enjoy, and you shouldn't cripple yourself, because if you work out, like if I want to eat more, I work out more, because I burn it. You know, I burn it, and I kind of been the same weight now for 10, 15 years. I was always skinny, not skinnier. I'm 165 now. That's my, I say, if I get past that, then that doesn't work, you know. So I try and maintain that one weight because, you know, I always think to myself, well, if I set it at 175, then it's 185, then it's 190, then it's 200. You know, you got to stop somewhere. So you might as well stop where you choose to stop.
That's right.
So I just choose 165.
Very good. That's your set point.
Yeah, that's the point that I say, okay, you got enough. I like to keep a couple pounds on the other side so I can splurge once in a while.
That's right.
Yeah.
You've got to leave.
But I'll bottle of red wine.
That's right. From reading about many companies and some of the issues that they're having, we're finding that many companies are going to sleep about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And the productivity continues to fall. And it's hard to be competitive if your company goes to sleep by 2 o'clock in the afternoon and you have many more hours of productivity to gain. And it's due to people not eating correctly, not moving their bodies. They're sitting too long. They're staring at a computer screen.
Yeah.
What do you think we could do to get companies more energized, where people want to be energized, they want to eat right, they want to move their bodies, and they want to stay productive? How do you think we can accomplish that?
Well, you know, I think part of it's corporate and part of it's personal. And a big part of it is personal. You know, like if I went to work for a company that didn't give me anything, I still work out.
Sure.
I think I've worked out all my life. So it's kind of it's a you thing. And if I worked for a company, for example, and I couldn't do it, I don't think I'd work for them. You know, just me is how I am. So I think that, and most companies want to keep their employees happy.
I would think.
And most companies, you know, that I've seen would love, they got workout places, and they do try and make it easier for the employee. There's many business models, Kirby, you know, around, and I've seen, and they all work. My favorite is the franchise model of business, just not any one franchise. But I like to take the common denominator of the entrepreneur and boil it down into small segments so that the decision making is right at the level of the consumer. So like I sell you hot dogs, or I sell you a Subway every day. You know, so my little store, I'm in the store looking at it. So I'm worried about the quality of food. I'm worried that you come back. So hello, Kirby, how are you today? Nice to see you this morning. How's the kids? You know, that doesn't happen in big business. That's a very difficult, big business would like to do that, but I think the way to do it is to break it down into smaller components. And the only model of business I see is franchising that does that. That entrepreneur who's right on the Dairy Queen, you know, with all those models that we so well know, they work because if I work for you and you're coming to work every day and you know that I like to run, you'll let me run for an hour a day. Like, you'll figure it out because you know I'm a good employee. You know, whereas if I'm the boss of IBM, there's this whole levels of bureaucracy that have a more difficult time to be everything to everybody. Whereas the little entrepreneur, I believe, I mean, I'm biased though, I believe the little entrepreneur is the heartblood of America.
Absolutely. A goal of mine, and I'm sure it would be a goal of yours too, you're running a giant company, is to provide a culture of wellness throughout your entire organization. Don't you feel that would work a lot easier if there was a culture? It was the end thing to do.
Sure. Well, that was the very beginning. I think we talked about leading by example, and you know, and it absolutely is but it's a company. They're unique, you know, and the leadership of a company is very unique. And a lot of times, I think leaders don't exercise their uniqueness enough. Like, they could do more. We all could do more, you know. Right. But companies do have a fabulous, like, you know, like Apple. You know, they've got a great culture.
Yes, they do.
You know, there's a new company called Lululemon. Have you ever heard of it or not?
No.
You should Google it. Unbelievable culture. It's a clothing company. They make new clothing. But and so a lot of these new companies that are coming up now, they've got great cultures, like you say. So that culture usually recognizes, or it attracts people who are attracted to its culture.
Of course.
People are attracted to go to work for that kind of a company.
And their values align.
Exactly.
Let's talk about inspiration.
Okay.
Another foundation. What inspires you?
What inspires me? People people inspire me. Like today is a day of heaven for me to meet all these new people, you know, and go to the campus and work out this morning and meet with some old colleagues and friends of mine like Leanne up here, you know,
Yes.
and see the work that's being done. Having a meeting with Bob today, Casey, seeing what he was doing here, his passion for the business.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm inspired by everyday living and mixing with the dialogue between people.
Where do you think people get, I know your inspiration for working out and eating right,
Yeah.
your wife, and then, but your inspiration of working out each day. What caused you to start doing that to start with?
You know, I ran in the Army when I ran a thing we call the Harrier race. And we actually won the Army Harrier stuff, you know. And that's 6 guys running 6 miles together. And I was 17 years old. So I got the bug. And it was a thing I could do. I'm not much of a contact sport guy because I'm too small.
Okay.
Well, didn't like to get hit either, you know. You know, so I didn't like the contact stuff. I always liked running, jumping, volleyball, stuff like that. So running, I found running was my thing. It's a solo sport.
Right.
And although funny enough, I was in a Harrier team.
But it's finding your thing, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah.
And that's finding your inspiration, and everybody has different types of inspirations.
Right.
It's going out and seeking that. And the last one is reflection.
What I found is that the commonality of a lot of people's success, their ability to move forward and do bigger things and greater things, was the strength of their journey, where they came from. And so if they can if you're going through tough times, or you have some high goals, some high plateaus you want to achieve, if you can look back at things that you've done, you know, at the birth of your son or your daughter, at graduating from high school, at winning a medal, a ribbon, when you were an officer of one of your organizations, you know. But look back at the successful things you've done, and they give me great strength in moving ahead to more stuff, more successful
Absolutely.
things. Confidence.
Yes. We briefly touched on goals. We have about 1 minute left. And but you spell out rumba.
Right.
And I love that.
Okay.
But I think it's important to remember rumba
Okay.
when achieving these goals. If you could talk a little bit about that, please.
Sure. Well, when you set your goals, I always say your goals have to rumba. So think of yourself rumba, the dance.
Yes.
They have to be realistic, understandable, meaningful, believable, and achievable. That's what goals have to do. And if your goals are realistic, understandable, meaningful, believable, and achievable, you'll get them. And if you go through that little exercise when you set a goal, is it each one of those components, then you'll achieve it.
That's right. Thank you so much for being on Mind, Body, and Business. It's been a pleasure. You've learned 5 strong foundations from Mr. Peter Thomas, and also rumba, about how to set those goals and achieve those goals. You can do it and increase your mind, body, and business. Thank you for viewing.
Thank you.
I interviewed a friend of mine. His name is Peter Thomas. He wrote a book called Be Great: The 5 Foundations of Living an Extraordinary Life. I feel everyone deserves to live an extraordinary life, don't you? Peter Thomas refers to this book as his life manual, and a man in his early 70s sharing his manual for life with you. I see great value in that, and I know you do too. I want you to pick up the book Be Great now at www.gratification.com. It's simple reading. It's an easy life manual for you. It lays down all the foundations that it takes to be great.